All right, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you or speak to you initially and then have a dialogue, hopefully. So Joachim previously showed the light blue line going slowly upwards. That was the CO2 sequestration or CO2 removal or the CO2 negative emissions line. And Puro is all about that. Moving from high carbon intensity production to low carbon intensity is necessary. However, reaching net zero requires the removals, and that's what we are going to talk about. So our mission is to reverse the climate change by accelerating the CO2 removal from circulation. And we do that by making the various methods of removal comparable with each other. We make them verified so that we can trust that it has really happened, and tradable. We turn that into a digital tradable asset. As said, from the perspective of the climate, the number one priority is to reduce emissions, to reach this low carbon economy. There's a lot of activity there, there's lots of regulation, lots of good things going on, such as the EU emission trading system, which is going to expand in the future. But what we focus on, the only thing that we focus on, is removals. So, each one of us, be it an individual, a corporation, a city, a country, or continent, whatever it is, can reduce our emissions. And we should do that. It's our obligation to do that. So the question is, how could we outsource our emission reductions to somebody else? Now, this is the way carbon markets have functioned so far. We have outsourced the emission reductions to somebody who are supposedly not responsible for doing it for themselves. Now, this story is sort of running out, and we need to start figuring out how to remove it. And the carbon removal operations are rare, and they do need stimulation. And that's where we come in. Our approach is based on materials and products that embody more carbon dioxide than their production emits. So the upward arrow over there is the emissions from the production. And in some cases, the amount of embodied carbon or sequestered carbon in the product is more than the emissions. So therefore, there's this net negative part that can be sort of decoupled from the product itself and turned into the digital tradable asset we call the cork, CO2 removal certificate, cork. Now, the physical product can then be sold as carbon neutral. It cannot be sold as a carbon sink anymore because that would be double sales. So our sort of suppliers of negative emissions need to consider whether they can, benefit more from selling it separately or in combination with their product. So far, we have identified and documented 3 different methodologies, like we call them, or methods. Biochar is one of them. So previously, we actually had a discussion about, related topics. So pyrolysis is used for creating biochar, and when that is used as a soil improvement or as an filter for different kinds of waters, for example, that then can be considered as a carbon sequestration method. The same applies to carbonated building elements, which is basically a concrete block that sequesters more CO2. It's made completely without cement. Instead, it's made with steel slag. And wooden building elements, we haven't maximized the amount of, buildings that could be created with wood. So we need to stimulate that, and that's why we have taken it into this scheme. And we're constantly looking for new methods, and we have been approached by approximately 150 different companies since we launched, suggesting us to become suppliers either within the existing methods or proposing new methods to be included. All right, we are a marketplace, so we own the IPR for the cork, we own and run the registry, but also we run the marketplace where to trade with these. And so there needs to be buyers and there needs to be sellers. And we have 3 methods of trading. One of them is the auction, where the price is determined based on supply and demand. When the match happens, the revenue from the trade goes to the supplier, which in turns makes them more competitive. They can increase their marketing, they can lower their price in order to maximize the capacity that they have and then expand the capacity with the extra money. And obviously the buyer then can claim the climate service provided by this carbon sequestration. We take a 6% transaction fee at the moment from this. That's our business model. So, Microsoft has been carbon neutral since 2012. They have done it by buying emission reductions from others, from the emissions that they couldn't avoid themselves. A few weeks ago, or a month ago, they announced that they are going to become carbon net zero. They redefined the vocabulary related to this. And they said that they will now commit $100 million per year for the next 10 years to become carbon net zero and then draw out all the carbon dioxide that they emitted since 1975, which is pretty damn ambitious. There are other companies that have been doing the same kinds of announcements. Stripe was the first one. It's in the financial sector. They're a payment processor in the web e-commerce side. Shopify, Sky, British Petroleum, Delta, Swiss Re is big player on this. Repsol, AstraZeneca, Drax, Nestle, Patagonia. Huge companies and bigger ones coming along. These are what we call climate mature companies. So though they are from various fields, various sectors, they are not determined by geographical location, they are not determined by their size, but they are determined by their awareness of the climate issues and how long have they been thinking about that. And so my guess is that your customers will start asking about your company's response to this same topic pretty soon. So it's good to think about, first reducing the emissions as much as possible and then figuring out how to reach the carbon net zero. Can you bundle it to become, first sell one product as carbon neutral product and then expand that to cover that the whole company. So there's a lot of talk about having to give up on many things due to climate change, and that's probably true in some cases, but very seldom do we speak about the fact that it provides new opportunities. This is what we are now talking about here in this room. It's all about this new type of economic activity. And many of them are quite established, like the wind energy and solar energy. But this is the sort of new activity that is sort of slowly now emerging. So obviously investing in companies that produce negative emissions, that run these carbon net negative businesses, can be a good opportunity for you and your companies. But in addition to that, obviously there's a bunch of other new economic activity around verifying the emissions. I believe there's our partner DNVGL present here today who does this verification for us that the emissions have indeed been sequestered. project developers, at the moment the ticket size is quite small. It's around from 2 to 50 million euros for expansion of these current facilities, but they will grow. So it will become an interesting opportunity for you guys as well. All kinds of intermediators, consultants and researchers are needed on these fields as well. All right, just an example. Swiss Re is one of the companies, one of the pioneering companies that have launched their CO2 net zero program, and they are, their slogan is to do their best and remove the rest, which really makes sense to me at least. And so they have been active on this field since 2003, but now they realize that it's not going to be enough. Quite recently, a couple of weeks ago, they announced that they have used our marketplace for removing some of their emissions, and now they are sort of turning more towards that direction in the near future. All right. I think we missed one slide for some reason from here, but I was supposed to tell you that we've started working on Puro full-time in August 2018. On March 2019, pretty much 1 year ago, we invited 22 companies to a meeting where we started to work on the marketplace rules and the methodologies. Then we, those were the main tasks initially. Then we specified the technical platform to run the registry and the marketplace. We, received claims from the suppliers. We verified them. We issued certificates, and we ran an auction. We sent, made the matchmaking and sent invoices, all within 71 days. So setting up a carbon market is not that difficult. We don't have to spend many years in committees figuring this out. We can do it quite fast. Now, 6 auctions later and 2 new business models later, we are about to be spun off from our parent company, Fortum, which is a Nordic utility. Probably everybody knows Fortum at least a bit. So this is, so we are going to become a sort of a regular startup with multiple investors in the near future. We will also have a ecosystem meeting taking place next week. You're all invited to join that. It's online event next Monday on the 16th. You can find that link from our website, from our front page. Just scroll down to the blogs and you'll find the invitation or registration link to join the event. If you have any more questions, then feel free to reach out to me at antti@puro.earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please join me here.
Thank you.
So questions from the app here. What will the market look like in the coming years? What is your prognosis?
It will be interesting to see. At the moment, the first guys that came to the market, wanted to open it like Stripe. They have issued a sort of a request for proposals for buying net negative emissions from individual projects, and I don't think that that's a very efficient way of doing it. We believe that it would be better to have a standardized solution. If everybody starts to figure out what constitutes a negative emission, it becomes really difficult. So what we are striving for is to establish a standard or minimum requirements for negative emissions, and then work on those.
This is obviously one function that you will have on the market. What other effects do you think your business model and your company will have on the market?
I think we really aim to change the nature of discussion from, this slightly fishy, CDM, clean development mechanism based carbon credits to something that is verified and trustworthy. And so we would avoid these nasty discussions. For example, in Sweden, there has been during the past autumn where it has been sort of doubted whether they make a difference.
And that's of course detrimental to the process.
Exactly.
Who are your owners?
Owners, yeah. So Fortum is the.
Besides from Fortum, it's just Fortum right now.
At the moment, yes, it is. But like I said, within the next couple of months, we are going to spin it out and have hopefully other investors as well.
Great. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about the suppliers of this.
Yeah.
I mean, could you give some examples on what type of processes that can supply the product that you're actually selling?
Yeah, so biochar is a good example, and wooden building elements is another one. I think both of them are, businesses on their own, but they do not flourish the way they should. And there are, once we make them visible, and make them, generate a new revenue stream to them, we enable them to grow and enable them to, make a difference in this sort of a new carbon removal economy.
And so far, is it more Scandinavian companies that are in this portfolio of yours, or what can you say about this?
At the moment, it is indeed Scandinavian, but as we speak, we have the verification process ongoing in Austria, Germany, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, and North America, so in the US. So it's expanding pretty rapidly.
Thank you. Do we have questions in the room? Hand microphone ready? Hey, over here. This side, Emma.
Yeah, thanks. I was just curious about the standard that you talk about with the new methods. What's the duration of the net carbon that needs to occur when you consider new approaches, new methods?
Good question.
Good question. We've set the bar to 50 years. So
50?
Yes, 50. 50 years is sufficient to take the carbon away for a duration that is, long enough for the human emissions to reach a downward slope. If it was 10 or 20 years, then we'd be sort of, potentially releasing it right when the situation is at its worst. So hopefully, by that time, by 50 years or 60 years, we will be going well towards the downward slope.
Any more questions? Well, we know we need to halve, as you said, in every 10 years, and that means if we do the exponential drop, we need to minimize roughly by 7% every year.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah,
That's a pretty steep drop.
Indeed.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Antti, and best of luck with your fantastic work.
Thank you.